This is the tutorial for Chapter 10, Section 1, titled Exponents, Day number 2. So let's take a look at our first problem here, and what it asks us to do is evaluate this expression that says 3 plus 2 times by 3 to the 4th power. So what we have to remember is order of operations, which start with parentheses, or any type of grouping symbol. Then we have exponents, and then we have multiplication and division. Now when we do multiplication and division, we work from left to right. Same thing with the next two, which are addition and subtraction. We work left to right. So I'm not going to add the 3 and the 2 first. I'm actually going to take 3 and bring it to the 4th power. So when I do 3 times by 3 times by 3 times by one more 3, we end up with 2 9s, which multiply to make 81. So now we have 81. I'll bring down my multiplication sign. I'll bring down the 2 and the addition sign and the 3. And so now I'm ready to multiply the 2 and 81. So that gives me 162. And then adding the two numbers together, 3 plus 162 gives me 165. So moving on to my next one, here I have some exponents. I could go ahead and simplify or evaluate. And 3 to the 3rd power makes 27. Bring down the minus sign. 8 to the 2nd power makes 64. Bring down the division sign and then the 2. So I divide 64 by 2 first, makes 32. And then I subtract the 32 from 27. So again, even though the 27 was the first number in the problem after I went ahead and evaluated the power, I still need to do that division first because division comes before any subtraction or addition. So when I do that subtraction, I end up with 5. Since I have more negatives than positives, it's going to be negative 5. So in this problem, same sort of thing. I've got to evaluate this exponent, this power first. Remember, this base is 3, not negative 3. So it's going to be negative 1 times by 3 to the 3rd power. And then I'll divide by the 27. And at the end, I'll take the absolute value. So 3 to the 3rd power makes 27. Opposite of 27 is negative 27. Divided by 27 gives me negative 1. But at this stage, I'll take the absolute value of negative 1, and that just makes 1. Well, in this next problem, I want to evaluate the power first, so I have 9 minus 32. So 2 to the 5th power makes 32, because when we have 3 2's, that makes 8. 2 2's make 4, and 4 times 8 makes 32. So I still have that minus sign in front. That's just like the opposite of 2 to the 5th. And at this stage, I need to take half of 32, and that makes 16. So now I can go ahead and do that subtraction, and that leaves me with not 5, but 7. So let's fix that. So negative 7 is that solution. So let's take a look at the next type of problem that we'll see. And here's one where we've got to evaluate an expression given this word problem. So it talks about scientists use carbon-14 to determine the age of a sample of an organic material. It says the amount of carbon in grams of a 100-gram sample of carbon-14 remaining after T years is represented by this function right here. And then it says use a calculator to find the amount of carbon-14 remaining after 8 years. Alright, so T represents the time in years. And so we're going to go ahead and substitute the 8 in place of that T. So we're going to find out how much carbon, C is the grams of carbon, of a 100-gram sample after those 8 years. So we're taking that 0.99988 and raising it to the 8th power. And so when I go ahead and plug that into the calculator, and I'll use the calculator here, I'm going to enter 0.99988, and then I raise it to a power. This is the one we're going to use where it's x to the y. So I've entered the base, that's the x value. Now I'm going to enter the exponent. And see, it's asking me when it has this little caret right here, this little arrow going up, that's asking for the exponent. And so I'm going to use an 8. And then I go ahead and press equals, and here's the number. So I still have, I'm going to write down a few of those numbers, 0.99904, and then it kept on going. I'll just use the dots to represent that number continues on, and now I'm going to take that value and multiply by 100. Now when I multiply by 100, it's just going to move the decimal 2 spaces over. So you see, you get the same number, 99.90, and I'll give another extra number there, 4 is the amount of carbon that I would have. So 99 and 904 thousandths of a gram of carbon after those 8 years. And so now I'm going to find out what the percentage is. So I'll go ahead and write down grams. That's what the units of this is. And so now I'm going to go ahead and find out what the percentage of carbon-14 remains after the 8 years. Well, I'll take that 99.904, I divide by the original amount. In this case, the original amount is 100. But then you have to multiply by 100 to change to a percent. So change to a percent. So in this case, you see how the hundreds are going to cancel out. If you had a different value here, like 90 or some other number besides 100 of grams to start with, then you would end up doing this work and it would change the value. But in this case, since my initial amount was 100 grams, I'm going to end up with a 99.904%. So it doesn't tell me the decimal point to round to, so I'll just leave it at that. So those are the types of problems you're going to see on today's assignment. Good luck.